Jonah Mitchell, welcome to the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. What is up, brother?
Ben, thank you so much for having me on, man. It's a genuine honor to be here, being able to talk to you.
It's an absolute pleasure. We've been in communication for some time now. We'll say like 9 months to a year, maybe actually even a little bit more than that, probably closer to 18 months now.
Yeah.
And I've been really kind of inspired by what you've been up to and thought it would be a good opportunity for our audience to find out more about who you are, what you're all about, why you're making waves in the industry, and share some of your passion. And so with that said, Jonah, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what's your background?
Oh man, that's I was literally thinking about this as you I listen to your podcast all the time, and your guests and you especially, like when you do visit other people, you have like this really awesome condensed bio, and I feel like I'm all over the place with mine, but I'll try to keep it super as simple as I can. I grew up a three-sport athlete my entire life. It was my passion. It was something that really kept me on the straight and narrow growing up. And as I got older through high school, football became the more predominant role, and was lucky enough to be able to play college football
Where?
at Western Colorado University.
Nice.
Over here in Colorado in the mountains. It was one of the longest drives you'll ever make if you grow up in Denver. Um, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. I was an undersized defensive end for a very long time. My entire life, people told me I was too tall and skinny. And I just had this chip on my shoulder. So I said, I'll win anyway. I'll start anyway, and for the vast majority of my football career, I did start. I had to redshirt my freshman year, but I started 8 games my sophomore year before I had a injury. But then from there on out, I was starting at about 200 pounds as a defensive end. And if you know anything about college football and defensive lineman, that's kind of small.
Yeah. Yeah. Was
Um,
it a D3 school or NAIA?
it was a D2 school.
Oh,
Yeah.
D2. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played D3 my freshman year of college, and I fully understand. Just I was probably about 195 pounds. I was too big to be and too slow to be a strong safety, and too small to be the outside linebacker. So I was kind of right in no man's land there.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the funny thing, is like they wanted me to gain 30 pounds at least to really fill out the role, because I was a head up four technique, so
Yeah.
just right in front of the tackle. And I still worked hard. I worked my ass off, to be honest, but not really to the level that I always thought I was. And that's really where a lot of my passions for health and fitness kind of started. Because as I played football, I always kind of had this really high standard for myself that I should be performing at a higher level, and I never quite did. And I never really knew why. It was really frustrating to have like these goals and these aspirations that I was never truly hitting. And it really came to light because I got the privilege to play with Austin Eckler. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a starting running back for the Chargers right now. And he was at my school for I played with him for 3 years, and he
Mhm.
was the standard of what I wanted to do. And yet everything I saw in him, no, I didn't know this at the time, I lacked within myself. And it really made me feel pretty insecure. Like I'm not willing to go the extra mile, stay later at practice, and go work
Mhm.
out on my off days, and he was doing those things. He knew the
Mhm.
playbook in and out. He knew the defense better than most of the guys who played defense.
Mhm.
And it was looking back now, it was pretty inspiring, but I wasn't in the headspace back then to really understand and really like to get in with him, and understand the whole, like, your circle really influences how well you do. So as I got to my senior year, I played undersized pretty much my whole life. I finally got to the point where I'm like, maybe I should try eating more and see what happens. And I gained 35 pounds in 3 months, and got played up at 205 for my senior year. I felt strong. It was one of the strongest I've ever been. But what I prided myself on for a long time was my speed, because I was so much smaller than everyone. I just had to beat them off the line. And then I lost my bread and butter, and then my body was even more injured than it had been for a long time. And I was like, where, I thought I had the piece, like, where's my performance? I still performed at a lower level than I thought. And this convinced me to try and professional, and this is where try and go professional for the Canadian Football League. And this is where I was introduced to personal training for your sport. I had no idea that was a thing, like my entire life. And my trainer, he really opened up my eyes to a lot of these biomechanical dysfunctions that I had, my muscle imbalances, why I was so stiff, I was so sore. And yet I still was in the thought process of, I just need to keep gaining weight. So I put on another 25 pounds. So I was about 250, and my slowest I ever been. And I had my first pro day for the Canadian Football League, and I had my worst numbers ever. I ran a 5-second 40. I had a terrible L drill. I lost every single like one-on-one drill. And I just remember sitting at the campus of UNLV and just like sitting there wondering, where did it all go wrong? Like, I thought I had it. I thought I figured it out. I gained the weight. Like, why did I suck?
Yeah.
And that led me to getting hired at the training facility as a trainer, and like being that kind of voice to help point out where these athletes were missing their pieces. And I found that passion for being that mentor for them, and that helping me understand where I went wrong. So that I went and got 6 certifications in behavior change, personal training, and nutrition. And I just became obsessed with why. Why did I not perform? Why did I not have the results I wanted? And I started getting I got in the best shape of my life because of it. My body felt better because of it. And after leaving that first personal training job and going to 24-hour fitness and really connecting dots for those clients, COVID hit, and I wasn't doing anything. I had all this knowledge. I had all this will to help people understand the same thing that I just had to understand. And I just threw out on a whim that I'm going to start doing this online. I had no idea what I was doing, and started my business. It started as Jonah Mitchell Fitness. And, I coached some of my old clients from 24-hour. And I had a bunch of friends and family. They started reaching out to me for coaching, and it just started coming together. I was like, maybe I should just start doing this as my full-time job. And my wife had a full-time job for a while, and this was the only thing I was doing. And I kept nudging her to quit her job. And after about 8 months, finally she quit, and we went all in on the business, and we saw a lot of amazing growth, and we saw a lot of not so amazing growth for a while. And it's been a bit of a up and hill battle, up and down journey. There it goes. To the point of like, it's been one of the most challenging things ever, but it's been so inspiring every step of the way, because every time we have a challenge, we have to get better. We have to find a different way to tackle it. And so ultimately we founded Phoenix Fitness and Nutrition Company based off of our own personal growth and development, through our own journey, through our own stories that we help other people do for themselves, and really help connect the dots for them with their own health and fitness. So yeah, that's a lot, but I hope it made sense.
No, that's great. No, it's awesome. And congratulations on that a transformational journey, which is really cool to hear. I know that within the scope of your journey, if you will, within the scope of even the past year or so, you guys have had a bit of a fundamental shift in terms of who you serve, in terms of your clientele. I'd love for you to share more about what prompted that, and kind of what that aha was like for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And man, when I was getting started and kind of going through the whole business building aspect and reading all the, like, who do you serve the best, and I came across a post that was like, well, you serve yourself the best. And that was kind of where I started everything. I was like, oh, well, I was an athlete who kind of lost his identity, and was like, all right, like, I'm going to help other athletes who lost their identity find out who they are. And that's kind of it's exactly what I did for my own journey. And as I was working with athletes, I loved it in the beginning. It was so much fun. It resonated with a lot of people. And as I started to coach more and more and more athletes, I found this common, I'm going to say issue, but I don't necessarily mean it was a bad thing, like on their terms, but the people I was coaching, the former athletes I was coaching, weren't into the coaching I was doing. I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
help them transform their entire relationship with health and fitness, not just get in shape again.
Right.
Right. So they wanted the workouts, the macros, and that's about it, kind of DIY. I was like I went that route. That's not going to work. It doesn't last very long. Let me help you guys. And it got really frustrating because they weren't seeing the results that I knew they could be getting, and they were happy with just macros and workout programs. I was like, all right, well, this isn't fulfilling me the way I thought it was. So as I did, and that was really frustrating because I was like, what is wrong with me? You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like where do I go from here? And as I kind of went on this introspective journey, I found that even though I did grow up an athlete the vast majority of my life, and I did resonate with the athlete story, you know, I didn't really get along with the athletic like personality type in at all. You know, I kind of had my own unique circle that wasn't always just about let's lift and just constantly talk about sports. You know, I needed that I really thrived in environments of diversity and you know, like if we wanted to play video games and talk about just like anything random or nerdy, like I needed that kind of outlet, you know. And I also fell in love with my own personal development of moving past like these limitations I gave myself. So the clientele I was serving, I still had the same drive of like helping people identify their own or their own passions, their own identity, and kind of live and rise up to that potential that they know they have. And yet it just moved away from being that athlete
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't the athlete part that was that was
Mm-hmm.
really resonating with me anymore. You know, that wasn't my true crowd. And so my crowd has been more along the lines of people who've kind of struggled a lot. Actually, no, not even kind of have struggled a lot with not only their health and fitness, but how they see themselves. And my program's a lot more psychological, but there's still the fitness and nutrition aspect around it. But I speak to the person that I resonate the most with because of how much I knew I could accomplish that I wasn't. So that's
Mm-hmm.
where like giving people understanding and more of a perspective shift that they're not the problem, that there's nothing wrong with them, that they have been the problem, but that because they can acknowledge that, they can become the solution, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. So I don't necessarily have just a demographic. I mean, I tend to work well with women above their in their 30s because women have a really tough time with their health and fitness from childhood and society, you know. And growing up from a single mom household, that's something I always kind of witnessed in my own house, and it's something that I truly resonated with, and just being that person that helps them realize that they've tried everything that hasn't worked for them, but that's okay. Like we still
Mm-hmm.
have to find something that's going to fit you and make you feel the best, and that's the beauty in everything that I do for people, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it's awesome to hear that. And to be fair, what I'm hearing is really revolving around helping people identify their self-worth, and the fact that despite the fact that you were a relatively accomplished athlete, despite the fact that you're a big, strong dude, is you found yourself in a position where you didn't feel like perhaps you were worthy of the accolades that um, you deserved, and you also felt the desire to serve other people in those situations, whether it wasn't you, but you mentioned your mother's relationship with her body image, with food, with weight, and feeling the desire to serve those types of people.
Exactly. Right on the head, man. You're a
Mm.
really good active listener.
I'm like nodding my head as you're talking through this. It's really interesting because, and perhaps this is really one of the things that I connected with you so much about, with regard to just the type of person you are. And I've been in many a similar situation throughout my career. And I know we're much older, but I see a lot of myself in you, in that, earlier on in my career, it really was a similar situation of feeling like wanting to serve professional athletes, having the opportunity to serve professional athletes. My master's degree is basically in strength and conditioning, and kind of getting out of school and having plenty and plenty of opportunities to go down that road. And I kept finding myself withdrawing from those routes, if you will, for the very same reasons, is it just wasn't connecting with, and frankly, not realizing it till much later in my career, but just not owning, that trajectory. And thinking, what's wrong with me that I don't want to work with, the most talented athletes in the world, and having, again, plenty of opportunities, and having worked with, world championship sports teams and famous athletes and what have you. And it's all cool, but honestly, it's not as cool as sometimes just the recognition and really just satisfaction, I should say, that comes from working with the everyday Jane and Joe, of helping them really fall in love with the process and realize that they are in fact good enough and worthy and deserving of feeling amazing and loving what they see in the mirror. And so I applaud you for that, and for really diving into that so relatively early in the process, because I see that really changing the scope of your practice long term. So that's awesome, man.
Well, thank you. You have no idea how much it means to me. It really does. Like, it's been, we were talking a bit off air how I've had challenges in the past with the adjustments that we've had to make for the business. But honestly, this is nothing I'd rather be doing. And to hear all that, it just, thank you. That's all.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome here over the last couple of years of trying to start and grow your own coaching business? I mean, I'll be the first to say that it is not without challenges. And having done this now for, more than 15 years, it is 100% a grind, for lack of a better term. So I'm curious, you being in kind of the infancy of your career, what is it that you're experiencing right now?
So the biggest challenge, I think, overall, before I get into like the current one, it has been this imposter syndrome, right? Like you said it. I've been a coach for about almost 3 years now. Very new to a lot of the business side of things. No matter how much I know, I always don't know enough. Totally. So as that has gone, I've been in rooms with people like you who've had decades of experience, who've had like hundreds, thousands of clients go through their programs, and it's just looking at it like, holy crap, like, where do I fit among all this? And really learning to not let that be so daunting and terrify me, and look at it as more of a inspiration of like what I could accomplish, and this clicked for me back in April, when I listened to Dr. John Berardi speak about everything that his company did. And I mean, not to say that anyone else I've heard, but this just really resonated when he's got up there, and he's like this well-decorated guy. He's the most down-to-earth human being I've ever met. Mm-hmm. He's just a regular guy just trying to do his best. And it immediately took just immediately reminded me, like, all these people are just people. They're not these scary aspects. Like, I don't have to be in a competition with them. They are people that I could be just like, as long as I get out of my own way. So that uphill battle has been like just kind of wrangling that back down and reminding myself that this game, this is the long game, right? And no matter what, just like anyone on their own health and fitness journey, like, you're not in it to see if you see the truest success when you show up no matter what in the best way that you can, and not out of resentment or hatred or trying to prove it to prove yourself to other people. And so as I've worked through that, the challenges we've been facing with my wife running the business with me is, our own personal development and growth was put on the back burner as the business was growing, and as business grew. And we made some life adjustments. Like, we tried living in an RV, and that took a lot of our money. And that's a whole nother story. Yeah. As that stress of business growth pausing, and we were so distracted with that RV, and a lot of our own personal development kind of got pushed off the back burner. And as we've been trying to rebuild the business, a lot of our own personal developmental issues started coinciding with business growth.
Yeah.
And it was like butting heads. That's been the biggest challenge, is as individuals. I mean, as a married as we're a partnership, we're married,
Right.
we both still have to have an individuality. We both have to have our own voice within this business, and we still have our struggles, our traumas that we have to work through. And there's sometimes our energies don't match. Like there's sometimes where I have to be the very kind of driven, like, let's do everything all at once and get things going, and she's very good at being the passive, like, relax, let's kind of go from a place of abundance and really not put ourselves in the same hole that we have in the past. So and since then, like, we've been able to find this middle ground with showing up as our true selves and really kind of showing that honesty to our community, our clients. Say, hey, we struggle with a lot of the same things you guys have, and that vulnerability that we've shown has really allowed us to be even more passionate to everything that we do, be it our podcast, our community, our coaching, and even though we did take a bit of a dip financially and had to take some adjustments, we have been able to really show up to the level that we need to. That may not translate to dollar signs just yet, but it translates to what really I wanted from the get-go, was developing a thriving business around people, around the person. That I want every person to come in my community, in my coaching program, even if they don't get to their goal, they are far better off than when they left. And they have they know much more about themselves. And even if they don't finish my program, or they go and do multiple programs, like, I want to create something that's just people driven. I love people. And because of it, like, because of these challenges, like, it's, even though there's some really tough times, there's some suffering, right? If we're going to go David Goggins, you don't grow if you don't suffer, right?
That's right.
It's still getting clearer. The path is getting clearer, and yeah, we're super young at this, and it's a challenge every day, but there's nothing more worth it. Like, I would take this above any physical football training I did in the past, that didn't last very, very long. This is something
definitely it's definitely mental two-a-days. That's
that's
without question.
Exactly.
You've got a very mature perspective on the whole thing, and I can definitely resonate with the difficulties of running a business with your significant other and all of the complexities therein. And you guys don't have kids yet, but that will add a whole nother layer if and when you decide to. And so the fact that you're acknowledging all of these things right now is pretty cool to hear. For what it's worth, I would say that running the business, because I've been, running this business for years and years, and my wife just came aboard over the last couple of years and is certainly playing a pivotal role. But the most challenging thing has definitely been really just the dichotomy of having a marriage, running a family and a household, and running a business, really all within the same household, especially the last few years. So we have offices right next to each other, and obviously we sleep next to each other, and we feed the kids and have the kids right down the hall. And so it's certainly a difficult balance. And I think what's most important, for what it's worth, the way that I think about it is, as long as we have a shared vision of the direction that we're moving in terms of our relationship, in terms of our family, a commitment, in terms of our business growth, then everything else can work itself out, right? Because there's obviously going to be different seasons where we're spending more time and energy on different things, and all of it can improve together. But I think that there's this elusiveness to the idea of balance. One of the things that has been the hardest for us is really just making sure that we are making that and being proactive about putting the time into growing in the appropriate way together. But it's also the most exciting component about it. is the fact that we do have a big shared vision. And we know that despite the fact that we're changing as individuals, we're still growing together. And so it's exciting, right? Because you can see sort of the long-term trajectory, you can see your long-term growth together, your life, your business growth, your family growth together. And that's reassuring for me. So it's just the way that I think, again, for what it's worth, it's the way that I think about how we manage things on a daily basis, and just making sure we don't get too lost in all of the minutia, because obviously there's things pulling at our strings every single day in multiple ways. But you guys will certainly figure it out as long as you have that shared vision.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot, man. I'm always thinking, like, when we do have these, it feels like these polar opposite views or energies, it's very easy for me to forget that we do have a same shared vision with what we want to accomplish, not only with a business, but as a relationship, and, this is, I told my wife, from the very beginning, I will never let this business tear us apart. And I will burn it all to the ground before I let that happen. However, we have had to do a lot of work to not let either of those things happen. And even if it is a challenge, it does. I mean, for what it's worth a lot to hear you say all those things, because I fully believe that whatever we have on the other side of this is exactly what we both want. Yeah. Exactly where we wanted to go. And it's that understanding, that faith. That's another quick thing I want to throw in here. Like, something I've always struggled with is patience and having faith in that system, that something's going to work out, things will work out. And it's always because I've always been so physical. Like, I can see my growth in the gym. I can see my growth in my sport. Right. But when I don't have that same kind of thing with, like, business or relationship, like, where that measurement is there, I have a really hard time really accepting that. But that's the point. That's really why I'm here right now, to really learn that lesson, so that I can evolve and be a better husband, be a better business owner, be a better coach, so that we can just continue to drive this vision in the same direction. So just that little speech gave me so many clicks in my head just then.
You hit it, though. It still is measurable growth. It's just time under the bar. It's the exact same thing, right? And it's just like, you're not going to see progressive, maybe you're going to see these tiny little incremental growth, with your lifts, right, day in and day out. But you fast forward over time, and obviously you'll see something significant. It's just so hard to see it from one workout to the next.
Exactly.
Right. Our meathead analogies here, which is awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit. I'd love to know, and just kind of dive into health and fitness briefly before I let you go. But kind of having now been in the industry for a few years, been fully immersed in the industry, we'll say, having worked with, a lot of people, both in person and online. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions around dieting and exercise, health and fitness, that's sort of prevalent right now in our world?
That is a great question. And I think the biggest one that comes to mind immediately, and I just actually got off the phone with a woman who's about to sign up with our coaching. And the reason why she wanted is because there's so much conflicting information out there in the health and fitness industry. And I fell prey to a lot of that when I was going through my own physical transformation. Like, I read the fasting articles, the keto articles, the carnivore, all the things that, like, if you I saw this funny video, but if you take all your nutrition advice from online people and all this polarizing, you wouldn't be eating anything, because everything's trying to kill you, right? So cool. I think the biggest misconception is really that informational overload that keeps people stuck, and they think they have to either do everything all at once, they have to be really clean, or they have to completely cut out these food groups. Like, the biggest thing I want people to understand is that you'll never, like, science is great, right? Science is amazing. We cannot really argue it in certain aspects, right? The only way to lose weight is to be in calorie deficit, but you have to understand yourself first. all of these these fitness pieces, like they are very valuable pieces of information. But if you don't understand what you need right now, that's going to hamstring you in a lot of your pursuits and your efforts, and a specific issue is, or a specific example, I had a client who lost 100 pounds twice in her life, and she was just regaining the weight from the second time when she signed on to my coaching program. And as we were working together, she lost it through very restrictive dieting, very incredibly difficult exercise. And as we were going through, as we were talking about it, like she uses food as a coping mechanism, and she was eating very little amounts of food to sustain this weight loss.
Right. Totally.
And the relationship she had with the scale, like any time the scale would go up, it would immediately go back down to cut calories, and that because she lacked that understanding of in her relationship with herself and her food, and she had no concept of how to slowly incorporate these concepts about nutrition and fitness. She kept going on this super crazy this crazy up and down hill of rapid regain and rapid weight loss. And my entire goal of coaching her was help her understand, like, this is your stress management. Why you're attached to food so much, and how you see yourself and tied into weight is really keeping you stuck. So that's probably the biggest thing. We're so quick to jump from thing to thing without looking inward first. And if we could do that, then we can see that everything has a tool that can be used in a way that doesn't really weigh on us, in a way that doesn't affect us negatively in the long run.
Yeah, I like the way that you framed that. And then the way that it made me think about things was that it's not necessarily that any of these, we'll just generalize and say it's not that any of these one ways is bad per se. It's not that it's wrong per se, but unless someone doesn't learn something from it, then it really does become worthless, right? To the degree that if you do keto, great, like, and you lose, say, 30 pounds, right? Doing keto, but then you gain it back. Okay, fine. It doesn't mean that keto was worthless. It means clearly it didn't work for you long-term, but what was the lesson gleaned from that experience? Was it that eating predominantly fat, moderate protein, very low carb was not the way for you? Not necessarily. Was it that it probably wasn't the way for you for long-term stability, right? Long-term maintenance, long-term weight loss goals? Yeah, clearly. And what elements of it can you take with you? It's like the whole Bruce Lee thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's really probably, in my mind, one of the most salient points that people, and for those of you listening, that I would encourage you to take with you from your experiences, instead of poo-pooing all of the things and or yourself for having gone down this road. It's not your fault, right? It's in our face. Even us as coaches, we've been down this road before. That's likely why most of us are coaches, is because we had to figure out our own shit. And it probably took us a lot of pain and sacrifice in order to do that, to the degree that now clearly we don't want other people to experience that same discomfort. And so if you can take with you your experiences from these different types of dieting methodologies, why didn't this work for me? What was it about this that didn't work for me as an individual? Why did it not fit into my lifestyle? What do I want based on that to look, to have my diet look like, right? And so on. That's really one of the ways that, does that make sense?
No, yeah, it's perfect. And I think the best thing, or I was actually listening to one of your podcasts, and, I think great coaching, and you said, I think great coaching comes from just taking what you're currently doing and learn how to slightly modify or optimize it in a level that doesn't fully intrude on your entire life, the way that a lot of these pieces, these fad diets or these
right
gimmicks, they make you change so much without that second thought of, like, how does this actually fit for me? and
Right.
that's okay if you've already been down that road, and take that same understanding of like, what didn't work well? Why did this make me so miserable? If we can continue to ask why, right? I mean, that's all we have to do is ask ourselves why. Where are the answers? What are the answers to those questions, so that we can then make a much better decision coming forward, right? If we can be more connected and conscious of our behaviors and of our body, we can sift through all the chaos and the overwhelm of information and really find our path. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
perfect, man.
That was well put. And it's really like what we talk about is listen, there's no secrets, there are no rules. And it's like you said, it's giving someone permission to just be okay starting with where they are and not having to try and do everything at the same time. That's what's scariest for people, is because they feel like they need to be aggressive to move the needle. And psychologically speaking, it just, we develop a lot of resistance to it. And so we've been playing around. We're running this big workshop, an in-person, by the way, for those of you listening, we're running a workshop here in Scottsdale in November, the first weekend of November. It's called Elevate 2022. So this is my shameless plug for our event coming up, which Jonah would love to have you and Hannah come if you guys are available. But it's called Elevate 2022. And our tagline for the event is the No Rules Health Revolution. And it's exactly along these lines of, there really are no rules when it comes to transforming your health, when it comes to losing weight. There really are no secrets, right? It really just comes down to figuring out where you are, what the low-hanging fruit is, and then consistently and relentlessly executing day in and day out as you start to stack those behaviors. So I can appreciate that perspective that you're taking on it. Jonah, let's kind of wrap things up here. Where can people find out more about you guys and your business?
Well, first off, congratulations on the Elevate 2022. Amazing. If I can make it work, we're gonna get out there.
Great. I'd love to have you.
But yeah, so me and Hannah we're most active in our Facebook group, the Total Mind Body Transformation. That's where we do all of our trainings. That's where we answer questions. We're building a very strong community around similar to what you're talking about, removing the rules and really giving ourselves permission to enjoy our lives and not sacrifice our health. So that's the biggest piece. That's where we're most active. I mean, if you want to also listen to our podcast, it's called Rise Up with the Mitchels. Forgot to mention that earlier for you, Ben. But yeah, that's on all other all available. Like,
cool. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Perfect. There.
Amazing, man. Awesome. So you guys heard it here. Make sure you guys follow Jonah and his wife Hannah, their podcast Rise Up, and check out their Facebook group, Total Body Transformation. And any parting words, buddy, that you'd love to share with our audience?
I think there's one thing that I want to share is, no matter where you're at, no matter what you have going on, there's a reason for it. And the way you see it, even if it is negative, it's trying to teach you something. It's trying to give you the lesson that's going to ultimately make you better. And, there's times where we all look back on really tough aspects of our life and be like, wow, like I'm somewhat glad that happened. And for where I'm at personally, I just want people to know, like, it will get better no matter where you're at. And if you're at a great place right now, great, keep going. Love that. And just keep on learning every step of the way. It never ends.
Beautifully said, man. You are a wise and old soul, and certainly much, much further along in your journey than I was at your age. So please keep up the great work. You're absolutely changing lives, and that's what it's all about. And don't hesitate to obviously let me know if there's anything I can do to support you in the process. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Thanks, Ben.